They called it the Hall of Blood. No official records ever mentioned that name, but among the sand-bitten archaeologists who worked the graveyards of Egypt was whispered with a fear that bordered on reverence, not because of what it contained, but because of what it did not lack. No hieroglyphs, no inscriptions, just polished basalt walls, reflecting torchlight like black mirrors, and at its center, a sarcophagus sealed not with tar or stone, but with a seamless alloy no one could identify as smooth as mercury, cold as judgment. They had to use acid to open it. What spilled out was not dust or bone, but the whispers persisted. So did the bodies. It began in 1891, deep beneath the necropolis of Deir el-Bahari, where French explorer Émile Garnier led an unauthorized dig funded by a secretive Viennese benefactor. He was young, arrogant, and already disgraced by the Louvre for claiming he had found mummified laughter, vocal cords preserved mid-scream inside a priestess's throat. A seductive poison for those who craved answers beyond the veil. But everything changed in 2002. Madness, they said. But madness has always been a poor word for those who stare too long into the abyss history hides. When she arrived, he was already dead, his face contorted in horror, his tongue removed and laid neatly on his chest. There were faint traces of neural conductivity. And most chilling of all, Sofia detected a heartbeat, barely perceptible, but real. But the chamber was open. And inside, Sofia saw the impossible. She dedicated the next decade of her life to investigating other anomalies, mummies that bled, hearts that twitched, bodies that refused to decay. The chamber he opened that autumn was unlike anything previously seen. It was blood. Thick, red, fresh, warm. Garnier collapsed on the spot. He said later that the figure inside had opened its eyes just for a moment. Fragments of documents, erased medical reports, museum pieces quietly returned or burned without record. And all of them pointed to one terrifying hypothesis. A young man, regal and pale, his lips slightly parted, as if frozen mid-prayer. The same impossible condition. Blood that stained the bandages like it had only just begun to clot. He named the mummy Der Blutige first, the bloody Prince Anne suggested. In a paper that was quickly banned, that it was the key to understanding the divine lineage of the pharaohs, or proof that gods walked among men. His heart, still in his chest, still intact, still beating, Garnier swore. But no one believed him. They locked the mummy in a sealed crate and sent it back to Europe. The crate never arrived. For years, the story was dismissed as desert delirium. In 1933, Heinrich Vogele, Nazi anthropologist working under Himmler's infamous Ahnenerbe division, claimed to have found a second red mummy near Saqqara. 3 weeks later, Vogel disappeared. So did the mummy. For decades, these stories drifted between fringe journals and occult circles. It was an unusually hot summer when Dr. Sofia El-Sharif, an Egyptian pathologist, was invited to a dig near Abydos by a retired German scholar who claimed to have uncovered a crypt sealed during the Second Intermediate Period. A woman, skin like porcelain, hair dark as obsidian, lips still soft, and blood fresh, glistening pooling in the hollows of her clavicles. But this was no ordinary corpse. This was alive, or rather something between. The blood had not coagulated. Organs were intact. The Egyptian government buried the discovery under layers of silence. But Sofia, scarred and obsessed, couldn't let it go. What she uncovered was not just a biological impossibility. It was a pattern. Across continents, across centuries, always hidden, always suppressed. These people had not died. Or if they had, they refused to stay dead. Dr. Sofia El-Sharif's descent into the underworld of forbidden knowledge did not end with her first encounter. In fact, it had only just begun. By 2010, she had compiled a list of 27 cases across history, each marked by the same grotesque detail. Mummified individuals with uncorrupted blood. Some were hidden in royal tombs, sealed by curses. Others forgotten in peasant graves, unearthed by accident, and reburied with trembling hands. The locations spanned from the Andes to the Himalayas, from the caves of Cappadocia to the dunes of Nubia. But there was one site that called to her more than any other. Beneath the collapsed ruins of a minor pyramid in Dahshur site, no tourist visited. No guide ever mentioned there were rumors of an anointed crypt, older than the reign of Djoser. Locals claim the sand there bled when disturbed, that birds avoided flying over it, not metaphorical literal. The walls were organic, fibrous, moist, pulsing. Sofia reached out to touch them, and the wall recoiled like skin. That one of Napoleon's scouts had entered its mouth and emerged babbling in Coptic weeping red tears. Sofia needed no more convincing. She bribed her way past the bureaucracy, hired a team under false academic credentials, descended into the forgotten pyramid under the guise of a soil stability survey. No seal, no lock. It's only a whisper from within, ancient yet intimate, like a breath against her spine. "Do you remember me?" His chest rose and fell with shallow breath. His lips trembled. And as Sofia leaned closer, he opened his eyes. What they found should not have existed. The air grew denser with each step, as if time itself resisted intrusion. No inscriptions lined the walls, only a single recurring sigil, a circle with 3 inverted triangles inside, like fangs within a mouth. He only wept. And the tears that rolled down his face were thick, dark, unmistakable. Blood. It was a symbol she would later find etched into the spine of a Sumerian tablet, long considered a hoax. But the real terror began when she looked into the stone basin at the foot of the sarcophagus, spiral staircase carved from solid hematite, leading downward far deeper than any tomb of that era. They spoke of the sleepers not dead but dreaming. It's preserved not by resin or herbs but by something older, darker, a bloodline bound to an ancient pact that defied death, not through science or faith but through debt and exchange. It's one body to preserve another. And within it floated the severed hands of countless corpses, each mummified, each marked with that same 3-triangle sigil, etched into the flesh. At the bottom, they entered what can only be described as a cathedral of flesh. The others fled. One never spoke again. But she pressed forward. At the center stood a sarcophagus of black stone, pulsing faintly with a glow like embers beneath coals. She opened it. What lay inside was a boy no older than 14, but with features so androgynous, so perfect he seemed sculpted from starlight and bone. They were red. Not bloodshot, not albino. Crimson, glistening, and alive with something not quite human. And worst of all, she began to feel it, the faint, slow pull calling from beneath the earth. She staggered back. But the boy did not move. Sofia's instruments went mad. The temperature dropped. Every compass spun. The camera batteries drained instantly. It was filled not with water, but with blood. Fresh, warm, bubbling. Sacrifices, but for what? That night, Sofia dreamed of drowning in red tides, of voices chanting in a language she did not know but understood completely. When she awoke, her fingernails were stained with blood, and her assistant was missing. She reported none of this. Who would believe her? Instead, she sealed the crypt again, buried it under concrete, filed it as seismic risk, and vanished from public life. But something had changed. Her hands would shake randomly. Her heart beat sometimes. ... paused. She began to crave the taste of raw meat. Her dreams were no longer her own. From him, the boy with red eyes. The heart that would not stop. Time pass, like blood dripping backward into the heart. Sofia El-Sharif was no longer herself. In the months after she left the tomb at Dahshur, she felt something invading her body. Not a disease, but a memory. It started with dreams. Her hands drenched in blood, fingers no longer her own, ripping open someone's chest in a ritual forgotten by history. Surrounded by fire and chanting in a language she didn't know, yet understood. She awoke with dried blood under her nails, but no corpse, no wound. Only the lingering scent of iron in the air, as if the house itself was breathing alongside her. She traveled the world in search of answers, from research labs in Austria to forgotten monasteries in Ethiopia. From forbidden archives in Istanbul to a reclusive collector living deep in the Altai Mountains, all paths led her back to the same tangled vein of knowledge, veiled in centuries of fear. A lost cult known only in footnotes and burned pages. That if blood remained unspoiled, the soul never truly left the flesh. There was no death, only a heavy, conscious sleep. A waking prison of preserved agony. They believed that blood was not just life, but memory. Not her own, but his. The boy from the black sarcophagus. Fragments of his life began leaking into her mind. A kingdom beneath the earth. Altars built from the bones of infants. Vow etched beneath the tongue with obsidian blades that one day the chosen would awaken Aga somehow. Sofia had become a vessel for that memory. Her sensitivity to light worsened. Her heart slowed, its rhythm steady and unnatural, like the ceremonial drums of a forgotten rite. Her eyes began reacting to the color red wine, raw meat, even roses, sending tremors through her body, awakening a craving she couldn't explain. She no longer felt hunger or thirst. She only wanted to taste. Her eyes were no longer brown. They had begun to turn crimson like 2 drops of frozen blood, gleaming in candlelight. Dr. Sofia El-Sharif returned to Egypt under a false name. Her eyes were hidden behind dark glasses, though they no longer resembled anything quite human. Her body moved with unfamiliar grace to fluid, to silent like a marionette gently pulled by something unseen. Sofia, with bleeding palms and bones aching with hunger, found the narrow mouth of the pyramid again, beneath a dune, reshaped by decades of desert wind. The stairs welcomed her like a wound accepting the blade. The air was colder now, tinged with the scent of iron and regret. The walls still pulsed faintly, though they no longer recoiled at her touch. Every breath she took was shallow, mechanical, not necessity, but mimicry. She didn't return for redemption. She didn't return to warn the world. She returned for him. The excavation site at Dahshur had long been shut down. Beneath, bureaucratic silence and reinforced concrete, but the earth remembered. Sand holds secrets longer than stone. No cinematic awakening. Just stillness. And then slowly his eyelids lifted. Crimson eyes, lucid and ancient, met hers. The descent was easier this time. She reached into her coat and removed the final offering, her own heart. Encased in glass, preserved not by science, but by decision. At the base, the sarcophagus waited. Still unopened since that night. But she knew. He had never slept again. Her body was no longer her own. Her voice, when she spoke, was layered hers, and something deeper. The Neboitha first of them, the origin vessel smiled, not with joy, but with recognition, like a king greeting his shadow after centuries apart. Blood spilled from the basin once more, thicker this time, darker. It pulsed with warmth, made of the same material as the sarcophagus, a black knot of absence, but of hunger, a black that remembered, a language without words. The sound of blood speaking to blood, flowed up not, down climbing the sides of the crypt, writing symbols into the air itself. Floating above a sea of what might have been stars or wounds, and he knew she was coming. When she opened the black lid, there was no gasp. They did not speak. There was no need. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling, not with fear, but longing. She had removed it days earlier, in a trance, and she had not died. She had evolved. She set the heart beside him, and for a long moment nothing moved. And then he sat up. The stone groaned beneath him, and the walls of the chamber shivered like flesh touched by cold wind. From the mouths of sarcophagi, from the cracks in ancient walls, Sofia rose, and the light in her veins glowed through her skin. "You remember me now?" The boy nodded. Together, they walked toward the far wall of the chamber, where once there had been stone, now a door. And as it opened, a sound poured out, not a scream, not a whisper, but a chorus of millions. Beyond the door was not a tunnel, but a bridge suspended in nothingness, arcing toward a horizon made of ribs and ash. And on the other side, others, standing, waiting. Some had eyes like hers. Some wept blood. Some bore no mouths at all, and all of them alive. The sleepers. They had never been dead, only waiting for the last to return. The vessel was complete. And behind Sofia, the earth began to bleed. In museums around the world, mummies shuddered. Their bandages darkened, sealed tombs vibrated. Blood began to trickle from the eyes of statues. The pact was remembered. One sacrifice for eternity. One body for memory. And as Sofia stepped into the other side, crossing from myth into memory, the truth was sealed, not with stone, not with fire, but but with blood, and still his heart beat, somewhere beneath the sands of a world that is already forgotten. The first heart of man continues to throb not for life, but for return, because immortality, as it turns out, is not a gift, it's a hunger, and we have only begun to feed it.